The last video on bizarre antique jewelry throughout history made such an impact, and I got so many comments on it either in my DMs in Instagram or on YouTube that I am making another video about bizarre jewelry, bizarre antique jewelry throughout history. Because who doesn't like seeing bizarre things, right? So if that's you and you love seeing bizarre jewelry throughout history, hit that like button down below so I know that you're with me. Before we get started with this particular grouping of bizarre jewelry throughout history, if you haven't seen the first video, I'm going to leave a link down below so that you can click on that link and go watch the first video. Now also, like I said in the first video, there are some really breathtakingly beautiful pieces of antique jewelry. This video is going to be primarily concerned with kind of the stranger pieces of antique jewelry and maybe some that you didn't know about. I'm also going to show you something that I think is perfectly normal, and I've got the most bizarre question that I've ever had in my entire life based on it. So stick with me all the way throughout the end of this video and you'll hear the most bizarre question I've ever been asked about antique jewelry. So let's get started. Number 1, uranium glass jewelry. Now don't let the word uranium trick you. It's perfectly safe. It will not harm you. There is uranium in it, but it just makes it really cool. There's not enough uranium in it to actually harm you. But the seriously awesome thing about this is that it glows under a black light. Lots of things glow under a black light, but uranium glass was specifically made because it's just cool. So there's jewelry made out of it, and then there are things like plates and dishes and glasses and all sorts of other things that you ate off of. So if you can eat off of uranium glass, the jewelry that's made from uranium glass is also perfectly harmless and safe to wear. Number 2. Kind of goes back to that first video and we talked about jewelry made out of human hair. Have you ever seen jewelry made out of elephant hair? Yep, elephant hair. It was a big thing in the Victorian period. There's rings and bracelets and necklaces with elephant hair woven into it. It's actually really cool. This does kind of go along with the Victorians' love of naturalism, so it does sort of harken back to that, but it is a legitimately cool thing. People that sell it now often will donate a portion of the proceeds of any sale of elephant hair jewelry to fund wildlife preserves or help elephants in some way. So while it's made out of elephant hair, it wasn't harming them, and if you buy it today, it could actually go to a good cause too, which is great. Now also in the last video, we talked about milk teeth jewelry, jewelry made from baby teeth. So you've already watched the other video, so I know that you know about that. Did you know that people also made jewelry out of elk's teeth? Now this was predominantly for the Elks Lodge, so people were just more prone to joining clubs in the Victorian period than we are today, and one of them was the Elks Lodge. It was sort of a little spin-off of the Freemasons. However, fun fact about the Elks Lodge, I just happened to find this because, you know, I go down rabbit holes because everything is so interesting. Fun fact about the Elks Lodge is that it was started by a group of guys in New York City because they were contesting the opening and closing of bars in New York City. So basically, to me, it sounds like the Elks Lodge was founded by a bunch of guys who just like to drink. No shade, not throwing shade on that. You want to drink, go for it. You might be drinking now, and if you're not, you may want to pause this video, go get a margarita, and come on back, because teeth in jewelry is not going away. There are all sorts of other things besides elk's teeth that people made jewelry out of. There's deer teeth, there's hog's tusks, which are kind of like teeth. Then there are things like bear claws. So a friend of mine has the coolest, what she calls it a totem, and it's a necklace, and she claims Native American heritage. So she has elk's teeth, deer teeth, bear claws. It's like this whole big neck mess of just cool stuff. And if single teeth weren't enough to put into jewelry, how about a full jaw of a weasel? As it turns out, these were made as talismans for hunters who were hunting in the Black Forest. It was just a good luck charm for them. But, I mean, you know, we talked about taxidermy jewelry in the last video. This really goes along with all of these really bizarre things throughout history, but it's so fascinating, don't you think? If you do, put fascinating down in the comments. I want to know what you're thinking here. Now, before we go on to number 4, we also need to stop and reflect on the fact that tiger claw jewelry did exist in the Victorian period. Yes, hunters went out, traditionally hunters went out, shot tigers for trophy hunting, took their claws and made them into either single pieces of jewelry like a single pendant, a ring, whatever, or complete full necklaces from tiger's claws. So, yep, this was not necessarily the greatest thing in the world, but the way that I see this now is that, hey, isn't it great that human beings have evolved beyond the point where we need to kill animals to adorn ourselves? So, number 4, this is not going to seem strange at all because it isn't. But I am going to tell you that I've gotten the most bizarre question of my entire life in reference to antique jewelry based on buckle jewelry. Nothing new here. You've all seen buckle jewelry. We have rings that are made into buckles. We have bracelets that were made with a clasp that actually buckles. This is not a new thing. The strangest question that I've ever been asked when I show someone a piece of buckle jewelry was, is that bondage jewelry? Wait, what? Bondage? All right, we're finally on number 5, and I've got to say, winner, winner, chicken dinner when it comes to the most bizarre jewelry throughout history. Lover's eyes. You're like, wait, what? Lover's eyes? I mean, this is kind of like, what? Bondage, lover's eyes? What is happening? There's a story behind it. There's always a story behind it. So King George IV, before he was king, when he was still Prince Regent, he fell in love with a woman named Maria Fitzherbert. Now, Maria Fitzherbert was a persona non grata in the court because not only was she a widow, which meant that she had been married before and not acceptable for King George to marry or the future king to marry, but she was also Catholic. Ah! So, you know what that meant. It meant that he was to have nothing to do with her. However, he was going to be king. He decided he could do whatever he wanted. So he proposed to her and secretly did marry her. The way that he proposed to her was a secret along with a secret marriage. He painted a portrait of his own eye and gave her a little pin of his eye. Remember, photography hadn't been invented yet. The only way to get an image of somebody was to paint it. So it was like a little secret message that he gave to her, just for her, so that only she would know whose eye it was. Now, like I said, they did get married in secret. However, his parents were not having it, and his parents decided to have the marriage annulled. Now, it's not like his parents did not have a leg to stand on. They were the king and queen of England at the time, so they could do whatever they wanted. They instituted the Royal Marriages Act. Now, I know you've heard about this because a few years ago, when Harry and Meghan got married, this came into play. This is where it started. Started with these crazy lovers' eyes. Don't you love knowing all of this stuff? Isn't it great? I will also say that as far as love tokens go, and there's a plethora of love tokens, lover's eyes is one of the cooler love tokens because, again, it's got that secret meaning behind it. Now, designers and current jewelers are making lover's eyes based on things today. You can get a lover's eye lover's eye, even though it's not a lover, of your dog. You can get one of your cat. You can definitely have one made for your pet, which is great. There are a lot of designers who are just making lover's eyes based on their own designs now. So here's one from Russell Jones that I saw several years ago. And he took this concept and thought, if there's anybody that I'm going to make a thing to remind me that I love someone, it's going to be his own son. So he made a lover's eye of his own son's eye, which I think is great. Now, like I said, all of these things have stories behind them, and it's really the stories that we're after here. So hopefully you enjoyed some of these stories, and if you'd like to hear more specifically about the plethora of love tokens that are out there, and you want the stories behind those, please write love tokens down in the comments, and I will make another video on all of the cool love tokens and the stories behind them, because those you've got to hear. Remember to hit subscribe so that you can get all of the great new videos as soon as they come out. And please go follow me on Instagram if you want to see the everyday goings-on of an antique jewelry appraiser and antique jewelry dealer. That would be me. All right, everybody, I will see you in the next video.